talk today is about how do we become gender-free. That's me in my childhood. So growing up, I came from a family where my father would make sumptuous meals and my mother would make strategic business decisions and vice versa. And all the way through, I've never told that you got to play with a Barbie. I played with Barbies, I played with cars. I could do whatever I wanted to do as a child. And what that really led to is my belief that I could be whoever I want and I could do whatever I wanted to. Gender-specific roles and activities and jobs were never part of my realm of understanding or dreams. I always dreamed and aspired for something bigger, and I knew deeply inside that I could be whoever I wanted to be and whatever I wanted to do, I could achieve it. So when a lot of people told me, Shilpa, you should take architecture instead of civil engineering because civil engineering is a man's world, I refused and I took up civil engineering. And over there, I thrived, I progressed, and I was actually part of the Society of Civil Engineers of my college. And it was fun. I did a lot of conferences, I would host events, I would give talks, and 3 years, 4 years of my college went really well. But it was at this same place that I first encountered gender-specific differentiations. Because I was a woman in a class which had so many male, instead of selecting me as a president of the society, they chose a fellow classmate of mine who had done nothing for the last 3-4 years for the community of the Society of Civil Engineers. I was a little upset at that point of time, but I wanted to know why was this decision taken. So when I asked my professor, he said that as it's a civil engineering society, the president has to be a male. I was angry and I was upset because I was in the forefront of a gender differentiation, which I hadn't encountered until then. But that was just the first of the many events that had happened. You know, when we look around us, it's almost normalized to actually have differences based on gender. Jobs are not selected based on your capability and capacity, instead based on how old you are, what is your gender, what is your background, what is your language. These are the things that people look at instead of looking at your own capabilities and skill sets. That time, this was back in 2007, I had a dream. I had a dream that I wanted to create a world which was gender-free, a world in which it didn't matter where you come from or who you are. All that mattered was your capability and your capacity. A world where people looked at each other as people first without any labels. Just imagine what would that kind of a world be like. And that is what I dreamed of. That is what I aspired to achieve in my anger. But as life moved on, I just carried on with life as always, and as I said, everything became normalized. The mistreatment and the ill treatment and the injustice just became a way of life, and I didn't question it. But then, in 2012, I joined an organization, a non-profit in India called Make a Difference, as a volunteer. And when I joined there, this was 2 years after my post-graduation in US, when I came back, I just realized something was different about this organization. The leadership team looked at people and the individuals as people itself, and all the volunteers who were working with children focused on the child. It did not matter whether it was a girl or a boy. It was refreshing, and I felt like I had found my community in India. In 2014, I joined Make a Difference as their director of operations, and that is when my journey of aspiring this dream really started. Make a Difference was founded to ensure equitable outcomes and better outcomes for children in shelter homes. So we were working with thousands of children from the age of 10 all the way till 28. And ours was a volunteer-driven model, and it was important for each one of us to personify how do you work with children. You had to invest and support children from the age of 10 all the way till 28 and beyond, not as a girl or a boy or a man or a woman. They were all children and they were all people. And that is the model that we had to set expectations and keep that going and evolve into a community itself. That really gave me hope. And the dream of making a gender-free world and having a world of equal rights as people came back to me. This was an opportunity for me to take up and to actually strive towards this dream of ensuring that no children are told and conditioned that as a girl you got to play with a Barbie or as a boy you got to play with cars. You could be whoever you want to be and have faith in that. It wasn't an easy task though, because we were working with communities across huge, large-scale communities, and I sat back and thought, what is it that I can do? What is it that we need to do as a collective to be able to reach this outcome? And there was one solution. The solution was to make the community that we work with gender-free. So when I say gender-free, I mean that you look at a person as an individual, as a person first, irrespective of what their gender is, irrespective of any other kind of stereotypes, and what decisions they make, what choices they make in their life does not depend on whether it's a girl or a boy or a third gender. All that mattered was you are a human and you are a person, and that's all that counts. But actually, it's not an easy thing to do, because that meant we had to break mental models and constructs that existed in our country and the world for hundreds and thousands of years. It was about challenging every thought that has been told to us from the time we were children, from the time we were born, and redefining what the world stands for. It wasn't easy. It was about changing individual thoughts as well as making systemic changes. And that was a challenge that we had at hand. That was the problem that we wanted to conquer. And the scale at Make a Difference is not small. And even when I'm talking to you right now, the Me Too campaign is going on, right? And everybody is fighting for the women's right. But standing in front of you as a woman today, I'm not fighting for the rights of a woman. I'm fighting for the rights of an individual and as a person, because I truly believe that all these discriminations are in place because of the fact that there are labels in the form of genders. But what if we remove the label itself? The problem would not exist. We would be in a much better world and a much better place. So that's what I'm here to talk about. I'm standing here for the people more than as a woman. And at Make a Difference, this, as you can see, is a community that we have. We work with more than 3,500 young individuals on a year-on-year basis. So to create a gender-free world or a gender-free community was not easy. Right? We had to ensure that every mindset was changed, and we also had to ensure that system-level changes were brought about. And that's exactly what we did. At Make a Difference, the first thing that we did was we actually took a step back and became mindful of the language that we use. Even for me, for example, one thing that I usually do is that anytime I'm on a group, a WhatsApp group, which has my friends, male and female, I would start my message with, "Hey guys." And that's something a lot of us do. We accept the fact that guys is a very gender-neutral term, but it's not. It signifies a male. And it's where even now, I take a few seconds while sending the message, but with the intention of ensuring there is gender neutrality and gender-free language that's being used, I started using "Hi everybody" or "Hey folks" in my communication. It's a very small change, but that ensured that everybody on the group felt heard, felt acknowledged. I'm also going to ask you another thing. Just think for yourself. Every time you're giving an example, there's some pronouns that we use. Instead of saying "she could be happy," we always end up saying "he could be happy" or "he could do this." This is something that's so ingrained in us that we're not even aware of it, right? But these actually are very important aspects for us to ask ourselves and acknowledge and change, because language is very, very important. Language basically ensures that it creates thoughts in our minds, and language then creates thoughts, and thoughts become culture. So language has the power to break or make any kind of societal norms, any kind of culture that exists. Which is why my request to you today is, when you go back, just think for a few seconds and ask yourself, what is the language that I'm using? Be it a girl or a boy, we do end up using disempowering language on a day-to-day basis. The second thing that we did was we ensured that we removed all kinds of gender-specific roles. It did not matter whether you're a man or a woman. What mattered was your intention and your interest and your skill sets and your capabilities. At Make a Difference, 70% of the leadership roles are taken up by women. And this wasn't just by design, it was by the fact that we just took on people who had the potential and who were capable, and that's all that mattered. Another thing that we noticed in the process that happens is that for years and years and years, we have been told, do not be vulnerable. Being vulnerable shows that you're weak. You cannot show emotions, especially if you're a boy or a man. You cannot cry. If you're cried, you're bullied when you're in school and college. That also really affects you and does not help you become your own person. Right? So what we did is that we broke free of that. We created systems in such a way that people could be vulnerable, people could be their own self, and we created safe spaces within the organization. So what we did is that we used to have every day morning, we start with a check-in where we actually ask each other, how do we feel? How are you doing? This gives people an opportunity to really share what's going on in their life and create a much more closer community without any filters or biases that exists. We said absolutely no tolerance to any kind of bullying or teasing or taunting. It does not exist in our organization because we realize that this causes a lot of pain. Even as an adult, when you are teasing somebody or bullying somebody, or even there are triggers that will actually bring back your childhood memories and childhood trauma. So that's another thing that we stopped and ensured doesn't happen. What that really led to is, right now, we have a community of people who are a lot more empathetic because they have been able to access their emotions. They are a lot more aware and kind and mindful to each other. And this also built a very strong network of community where you have friends and you have family at work. We have had a lot of instances where people have come out of the closet and they've had support from all of us all the way through their journey of life. And now they are flourishing and they are doing great things in life. And for me personally, in my journey, I felt that I found a family and a community here who understood me and with whom I could also break some of my barriers, where I could actually be strong enough to learn how to emote, to share my emotions, and also to just not have to strive so hard to prove myself. Because that's something I picked up when I was in college, when I had to prove myself to be a woman. I didn't have to do any of that because I was in a place that was safe and I had a community around me. And that was a really great experience. Another thing that we had to do was not just change individual mindsets, we had to bring about system level changes. It is a large organization, it is a very big community. So irrespective of how we say that we need to be gender free, we need to empower everybody in the community. Without it becoming system level, it will not last, it will not sustain. So what did we do? First one, we ensured equal pay. So when I say equal pay, I don't mean that a male and a female is paid equally, I mean that the gender is not even taken into account while we decide what the pay of a person is. So that ensures that everybody is paid well. And the beautiful part of this has been that we've been able to get really high quality field experts on board to work with us because of this one big decision that's been made. And a lot of them have been females. The next thing that we did. Most of India has a maternity leave policy. Do you know that the paternity leave is 2 weeks? And that's about it, nothing beyond that. So we decided to change that. At Make a Difference, we have a parental leave policy which has equal rights for the mothers and fathers. So you get 6 months of paid leave. And that brings about 2 things. One, it ensures that your child has enough of face time with both the mother and father. There's more support in the family for the child during the initial stages of growth. And the second thing, it completely removed the fact that women are at a disadvantage. Otherwise, what happens is that while hiring, while promotions, there is a potential chance that the women would go off on a 6-month break. But because of this change, it doesn't matter whether you're a male or a female, eventually you would be taking that break if there is a need for it. So that completely at a system level removed the disadvantage that women have across the organization and the community. The third thing that we did was fair voice for everybody. So at Make a Difference board of an 8-member team, initially we had 2 females and 6 males as part of the board. We changed that to give equal rights and equal voice, where we have 4 males and 4 females, including myself, to represent the entire space. And that ensured that we have equal voice all the way through, from a volunteer to the board. And the percentage of volunteers that we have is 50% male and 50% female. So overall, that's how our entire team is, which is a lot of equality that exists. But as I'm again saying, more than equality is about looking at each other as individuals and peoples that are gender-free. Another thing that really helped me, especially me in the whole process, is that as directors at MAD, we invest a lot in the young leaders of our organizations who are working and volunteering. Ensuring that we are gender-free, we were able to interact with people and give them inputs and coach them and mentor them for their skill sets without having to worry about what gender they are in and what background they're coming from, because we were sensitized and we were very aware of the fact of sensibilities of the people that we are working with. So there is no chance of us misusing this kind of coaching and mentoring that generally happens. All of this actually led to a really good outcome. In a world where injustice is something that's constantly experienced by women and women feel that things are unfair, what we managed to do is that we did a Great Places to Work survey on an annual basis, which was what's spoken about. And in that, if you look at all the ratings, be it fairness, be it respect, be it camaraderie, every component of it, women rated it much higher. Their experience has been much more positive. And for us, this was a great sign, because in a place where things are absolutely skewed in the negative end for women, by making the organization gender-free, we were able to swing it completely the other way. And that was a wonderful outcome that we managed to achieve. And the second outcome has been the fact that we are one of the top 10 great places to work. And just to give you some idea, it is great places to work amongst sectors where sectors have financial perks. sectors have more than enough bandwidth, but at Make a Difference, we do not have any additional financial perk other than annual salary. Most of our, almost all, in fact, all our volunteer base are not remunerated. They're just volunteering their time on a yearly basis, and there is a lot of workload. Despite all of this, Make a Difference is a great place to work because of its unique people-first culture. And that is what we've managed to achieve. I had a dream in 2007 when I was in college that I wanted to create a world that was equal, and a world where people were gender-free, a world where the rights of people were, people were looked at as humans and people and without any labels. And I feel like 10 years later, I've managed to achieve that with a collective of 3,500 people. All the volunteers in our system now look at each other as just humans, as individuals, and they are a lot more compassionate, they're a lot more connected with each other, and there's a lot more of wholesomeness that exists in our collective and community. I may not have achieved the dream of creating a world that is completely free of gender biases, where all the decisions and all the choices are made just because you're a human and just because you have capability and capacity, but I truly believe that if we start to focus on creating gender-free communities and organizations, little by little, the world will be a much more wholesome place for us to live in and also for the children of the future generation. And I stand before you today with the dream and belief that I will achieve it in the future. Thank you.